back, everybody. It's time for another video. Thank you all for taking some time to be here. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today, so please hang in. I got a very funny story at the very end for you. Some talk about not a new player, but a new player to me that just blew me away. And some things on some ideas on reissues. Just a whole lot of stuff in this video. I know it's a long video. Hang in if you can. If you like it, like the thing, like button and the subscribe button and all of that good stuff. Anyhow, let's get going. Well, welcome back, everybody. It's Jack Graham and another video. We're almost a couple weeks into 2004, so I guess it's time to do one. Got a lot to talk about here today. I'm not going to try to take too long. I want to talk about a couple of saxophone players today. Some really good stuff. And then just a little discussion on reissues. Yeah, so I've been, you know, I don't know who brought it up, but somebody on one of the YouTube channels here a few weeks ago was talking about Frank Morgan, the alto player. So I dug out what I had of Frank, and I actually listened to it all again over the last couple of weeks. What a good player. He had kind of a tragic life, spent a lot of time in prison, drug-related things, played in the famous Wardens band in San Quentin. Some good players in that band. Frankie Butler, the drummer, was in there. In that band, I think Pepper was in that for a while, and some other good players. But at any rate, he got his act together later in life and really developed into something of a really interesting player, but still had that, you know, Charlie Parker bebop sound. After later in his life, I think he developed more of a mellow, kind of laid back thing, and that's probably as a result of what he went through. But I'm just going to show a couple records of his that I really enjoy. Here's a great record, if you can find it. It's a contemporary. It was done in 85, I believe, and it's called Easy Living. Of course, the tune Easy Living that Clifford Brown made famous is on here. And this record is with Cedar Walton, Billy Higgins, and Tony Dumas on bass. You can't go wrong with that group. And it was, you know, of course, not an old contemporary, but it still sounds really good. It was done in San Francisco shortly after 1984, 85, I think it was, yeah, 85. Really good record, a very good sounding record. Players are great, and Morgan sounds really good on this record. I would highly recommend this record. Another record that was made on contemporary, and this one was made again in, I believe, after Easy Living. This is the one that came out after that one, and it's called Lament on the contemporary label again. Of course, he recorded, it was part of the Fantasy group. And on this record, it's Cedar Walton and Billy Higgins and the great Buster Williams on bass. Really tight band, good band. Cedar plays great on here. They stretch out quite a bit. Ciara, great tune, is on here. It's a Lee Morgan tune, and some others, Half Nelson. There's some bebop stuff on here too. But these two records, I think, are exceptionally good. Maybe I think the best record that he ever did was very shortly after one of his prison releases. And this was done in New York. he was very nervous, he said, when he went to record this record, because he wasn't sure of the reception he was going to get, and he wasn't sure of the New York scene, because he was basically a West Coast guy. But he went to New York with a band that they recorded again on Contemporary, and this was done in 80, it's here, probably 86, 87. And again, it's the same band, Cedar Walton, Billy Higgins, Buster Williams, Johnny Coles on flugelhorn, and it's live at the Village Vanguard. Johnny Coles doesn't play real well on this. I think his playing is very sloppy on this, but the recording is really good. It's a live recording. It's a very, very good quality recording, and I think this may be my favorite recording that he did. This is a promotional copy, of course. It's kind of cool. But it was done in 86, 87 at the Village Vanguard, New York. And the reviews there were really good. He played really well, and you'll hear it on those. If you could find those 3 records, I would highly recommend it. I have some other stuff of his, mainly on CD. Frank Morgan and McCoy Tyner. And again, this was on Contemporary, and it was done back in 87. You know, it's a little bit more improvisational on here, but there are more tunes, so they're shorter tunes, and Frank doesn't get to stretch out. It's a shame, because with McCoy on here, I was really looking forward to a little bit more of a, you know, less tunes, more playing. But, you know, so what? How Deep is the Ocean? And some originals, All the Things You Are, of course. Maybe the greatest melodic tune ever written, All the Things You Are. Avery Sharp on bass, McCoy, Frank, and Louis Hayes on drums. Good group. Contemporary CD. This is a bizarre, not a bizarre CD. It's kind of a laid back CD, but Kenny Burrell is on the guitar on this, and Ron Carter is on bass, and Grady Tate on drums. It's a really interesting listen. You have to listen to this more than once, I think, to appreciate it. And you know, I enjoy it. It's a little bit more relaxed, I'll say. This was a Verve release on the Antilles sub label of Verve. I don't know when this was done, but it's an interesting record. Frank did a record for Telarc, the great Telarc recording company. And this is called Love, Lost, and Found, with Ray Brown, Cedar Walton, and Billy Higgins. Again, another great group. Very laid back versions of tunes like Someday My Prince Will Come, All the Things You Are, again. All standards, basically, Nearness of You. Interesting record. Kind of laid back. It's good kind of record to sit down and relax to. It's not like the Village Vanguard record. And last but not least, is a record with Billy Hart on drums and Ronnie Matthews on piano. This was done late after 2000. I think this might have been one of his last recordings that he did, and it was on High Note Records. I don't know too much about that label, but you know, I don't think it's in the same class as the other records. It was later in his life, but you know, it was engineered and mixed with Van Gelder, so it had to be recorded back, you know, whenever. It doesn't say on here. 2005, and I go, well, okay. It is later, but it's again not one of his best. That Village Vanguard record and those other two, Lament and are really good records. Check Frank Morgan out. I think he's a very underrated player, and do a little research on his life. It's an interesting life. These guys, I tell you, it's amazing that they lasted as long as they did. Some of them. Falling into the drug situation, but great players, and boy, he turned out to be a great human being at the end too, and really learned a lot about life, and what to do and what not to do. I picked up, finally, this is the reissue that was done by Blue Note in the original Jazz Classics, again, of Kevin Gray. Kevin, I Never Sleep Gray. I'm always mastering, doing a great job on one of my favorite records of all time. I had this on CD, but I had to get it on vinyl. And boy, does it sound good. It's just a great record. The Real McCoy, great tunes. 4x5 is on here. And man, I'll tell you what a band. Joe Henderson, Ron Carter, Elvin Jones, and McCoy. There's not a bad cut on here. Blues on the Corner, great version of that. It's another. They're all McCoy tunes. Passion Dances on here. If you don't have this in some format, you have to have this record. What a group! It was a great listen. So this is being reissued on the new set of contemporaries that are coming out. This is, I don't know what year version this is, but I think it's in the 90s, and it's a Japanese reissue that I have of this. It was done, I don't know when, but I think it was the early 90s. It's stereo LAX 3018. It doesn't have a contemporary number on it. You can see up here on top. It's the Japanese version, but I gave this a long listen to, knowing the other one was coming out, and boy, I'll tell you what, Scott LaFaro plays so good on this. Hampton plays a little bit laid back on this, but very, very soulful. Very, 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 very tasty playing on this. And, Harold Land, of course, is the co-star on this record. And, he, not long after the Clifford Brown Band that he was in, maybe 5-8 years after that, this record was made, maybe even less. But he plays great, as he does on most everything. And of course, Frank Butler, the drummer I was related to. But I think hearing Scott LaFaro on the West Coast with these guys is certainly, if you don't want to spend the money on this kind of a pressing, buy the reissue. I'm going to maybe compare the two when I get them. Some of these old contemporaries, man, they sound as good as the new ones that came out last year, if not better. We talked about that. Another Japanese pickup. I had not seen this, and I've got a lot of Oscar Peterson, and I'm real picky on what I buy from Oscar anymore. And the real reason I bought this is because it was reasonable where I found it, and it was another Japanese Pablo reissue of a record called Freedom Song that I had not seen around here in America, and of course it's with Oscar Joe Pass, Niels Orsted, Henning Pedersen, Martin Drew, the English drummer that Oscar used for many, many years. Great sounding record. Great sounding record. And I have to tell you that, with all these reissues that are coming out on different labels, I know that some of the other YouTubers are talking about what they like to see. I think somebody said the Muse label would be great. Steeplechase, Inner City, that genre. But boy, I tell you, there's so much Pablo around, and it's still around reasonable, but it was recorded really, really well, most of them, and with great players. And I would love to see some Pablo being reissued, either by Acoustic Sounds, or the Craft folks, or whoever wants to do them. But man, they're around. And this record is another one I'd love to see reissued. I just pulled this out to listen to the other night. This is an OJC version of the Zoot Sims Harry-Essen record. I have this on Pablo, and the Pablo sounds a little bit tighter than the OJC, which is saying something because these OJCs, were really good back in the 80s. OJC 498, so it's a pretty old record. It's interesting that this came from the Columbus and Bay Towers record store. It was bought in 1996 for $9.44. Interesting. That's pretty cool. A new player. I got a really great comment from a listener. I hope he's still listening. And he was right that I should be trying to talk about some new people because there are some new people that are playing really well. Um, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, and I don't mean to. This gentleman was born in France but's lived in New York for a number of years. He's a great tenor player, a great saxophonist. Jerome Sabah, Sabbagh. Jerome, if you're watching this and bought this record direct from you, and I'll send you a note and tell you that this is up. It's a great record. I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong, but he's been around a while, and he's been it's kind of a staple in New York. But you know, he doesn't recording wise. He's got a few things out, and they're all good. Stream this if you don't have it, folks, but then buy it. This is his new record called Vintage, with Kenny Barron on piano, Joe Martin and Jonathan Blake. But Kenny Barron plays so good on this record. And they're all original records, original tunes. And man, his playing is so, so good. You know, I listened to it. It was the first time I sat down and listened to him. We all tend to say, well, who does he play like? And when you can't say that, and he really has a unique sound, that's the ultimate compliment. But, you know, I hear a lot of, you're really going to laugh at this, I hear a lot of George Coleman, I hear a lot of Charles Lloyd. Can you picture that? But a lot of Lester Young, too, and that Stan Getz, but that's Lester. But hearing a Charles Lloyd and a George Coleman in one player, it's kind of a unique thing. And I listened to this 4 or 5 times, this record. It is superb. Recorded really well and mastered by Bernie I Never Sleep Grundman. I don't know when these guys sleep. And finally, we'll just end with a funny story. You know, someone asked, I mentioned I listened to a fair amount of classical music as well. And someone asked, am I ever going to talk about a classical record? And, you know, I probably will. Interestingly enough, I was digging through some of my records, and I happened to have bought the new version of The Rite of Spring that was done by Abato with the London Symphony Orchestra and Deutsche Grammophon. Came out a few months ago. I've not opened this yet. And it's limited edition. I have number 1820 out of 2400. I'm sure it's amazing. But the reason I haven't opened it is because I have an original pressing of it as well on Deutsche Grammophon. And I listened to this one the other night, and man, it blew me away. I am going to open that up and compare them. But man, what a great recording. And you can still, I looked on Discogs, you can still find these. Most of them are in Europe. You're going to probably pay for this record, I'm going to guess, with shipping to America, maybe 30 to 35, maybe 40 US. It's a great recording. I can't imagine how much better that other recording is. I am going to listen to it. And now I'll end with a funny Stravinsky story. It's a true story. So one night, Charlie Parker's playing in the half note in New York. And who's in the audience? Igor Stravinsky. You picture this. And Parker was influenced, you know, not a lot, but he knew about Stravinsky, studied some of the work, and was into that kind of thing. And so they started talking, and Bird went up after the intermission. I don't know the tune he was playing, but I think he quoted Petrushka, which is a Stravinsky piece. You hear it a lot of players, trumpet solo in there. And Bird quoted that on one of his choruses for Igor. Just imagine Igor Stravinsky and Charlie Parker sitting at a table. Man, I'd love to have heard that conversation. Anyhow, until next time, we'll see you soon. And thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.